All right, first Ben Schneider Show in 4.5 months. We're right back at it again, a year to the day, with my first ever guest, my roommate, Shane Seekamp. How you doing?
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me back, especially for your first in so long. So thank you for having me.
Our first guest and our first guest to come back
Yes,
for a second time.
it is an honor. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Right, so as I mentioned, a year to the day since we started this thing. Just catch me up kind of on your last 365 days. Pre-COVID, post-COVID. Know you're living in Virginia now.
Yeah.
Army stuff. What's going on? What have you been up to?
So it was nice to go back to. I went home to Virginia once all of this stuff started to come down with the coronavirus. And it was hard to I think a lot of people had a difficulty kind of finishing up the semester online with Zoom and kind of doing classes like that. So I'm happy to be back now. I'd say the most significant thing that I've done in between this time is I went to Operation Agile Leader. The Army canceled cadet summer training at Fort Knox. So I was going to go to Fort Knox for about 35 days and complete advance camp, which is a huge training exercise that was going to involve a live fire, grenade throw, a lot of time on the range. I think about 14 days in the woods on a field training exercise, FTX. And that all got scrapped. And then we were going to do a decentralized model called Operation Agile Leader. And I completed that at Cape Cod with other schools from Connecticut and Rhode Island. So that was nice. I passed that. I got to meet a lot of cool guys, awesome cadre. And now I'm just here starting my final year of college, final year of ROTC, and looking forward to graduating in May.
How do you feel being in your final year? Do you feel like it's been a long journey, or has it just kind of flown by?
It's been a long journey. There's been so much stuff with school and papers, and I think what makes it hard is a lot of, as you know, early mornings. You have all this stuff to do, and you have to wake up at like 5 o'clock to go do physical fitness training or anything like that. So it's rewarding. It makes you resilient, but it has been a long 4 years.
You mentioned the early mornings. Have things, I assume they have to have changed somewhat with all the COVID precautions being back this year. Tell me how you guys have been carrying on. If you're still doing most of what you were doing. I know you were headed off to MIT Wednesday nights, obviously trying to keep schools in each of their quote-unquote bubbles makes that more difficult. So what does a typical week in your ROTC life look like right now?
So it's all virtual. So we used to do training at Salem State. We might see Endicott in that rotation. As you mentioned, we would go to MIT every Wednesday night. And now it is a training model that is focused on campus. We'll do PT here. And then we will also tune into Zoom calls. I think now instead of Wednesday, it's every Tuesday night. And, if needs to be a battalion staff meeting, that will happen on Zoom as well. And what they've done is instead of doing training together every Wednesday like we used to, they'll say, okay, this Saturday of the week, we're going to all come back together. So we had cadets from Wellesley, Harvard, MIT, Gordon, Endicott. We all came just this past week at Fort Devens, and we'll do like an 8-hour mega lab because COVID happens, but the military doesn't stop. And the people that are in this program are the leaders of tomorrow's Army. So we need to be resilient, adaptive, agile, and we can't almost stop like some civilian sectors can, because the people that show up to these trainings are going to be the people that lead tomorrow's infantry platoons that consist of anywhere between 40 to 45 soldiers that come in through the enlisted corps. So the Army has to keep going. The country's conflicts, struggles, battles, We're not in an open conflict right now, but training for the conflicts of tomorrow and making sure that we have the skills to lead America's finest, that needs to continue. So the Army almost can't stop completely, but we can change operations, and that's what we've done. So we've tried to mitigate with the COVID problem. Of course, we believe in preemption. We don't want anybody to be getting the virus unnecessarily. But there are still times when we do need to come back as a group together and hit out critical performance measures.
So if you think back to March, when everything really began to get shut down, and lockdown started to hit, what were you able to do when Gordon, for example, sent all of us home and for spring break and ended up keeping us at home, and other students, I assume, in the programs you're doing being in the same boat, were you able to communicate over video conference or do anything together despite being separated?
So yeah, that's a great point. It was really hard. What we had to do was we went on Zoom. We kind of finished out that semester doing virtual training, but the training model wasn't very sustainable because these are things that you have to get on the ground and practice with. It's one thing to watch YouTube videos about M4 marksmanship. It's another thing to get the weapon in your hand and start shooting the rifle. So, like I was saying, we could only go so long doing Zoom and virtual learning because at some point you need to get out in the field and practice these skills because our soldiers at our units are going to expect that we are capable of performing these tasks. And getting to a unit as a newly minted second lieutenant and not know what you're doing will bring doubt and suspicion on your leadership capabilities. And if you have that, you're not going to be as secure as you need to be going into any further training or mentorship or just leadership in general.
So you mentioned, obviously, you're in your senior year now, as am I. Where do you see yourself 2 to 3 to 5 years down the road? What classes are you taking right now, and what's the future plan look like?
So I'm a political science major. If I could turn back time, I would change that because I want to be a military chaplain. I would have probably done pastoral studies, pastoral ministries, something like that. But I'm going to finish up the poli-sci degree, and let's see, and I got accepted into grad school at Liberty for military chaplaincy. I am endorsed by the Baptist General Convention of Texas and the Baptist General Association of Virginia for ministry in the military. So I'm getting set up on a track to commission as an officer in May, probably mid-May. And then be a chaplain candidate while I go to grad school at Liberty in Virginia. My brother's there and my family is there. And I will complete that degree. The Army wants about 2 years of ministry experience, and then it is my dream to then transfer onto active duty and go down to Fort Bragg, home of Airborne Special Operations, and be a battalion chaplain with the 82nd Airborne Division down there. So that's probably what I would want to do. Jump out of planes and all that stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might have mentioned this the first time you were on, but why poli-sci?
So when I came into college, I was really interested in politics. And I think that everybody that finds a niche within politics where they're especially interested. So maybe you're interested in politics, but your thing is really social justice, or your thing is really environmental concerns. Or your thing is really economic issues. Well, for me, it was defense issues. So I was really interested in national security, U.S. relationships with other countries, kind of that more IR track. And that kind of put me towards the military realm. And once I got in that, I realized I wasn't interested as much in political science anymore. But I was looking at a career as holding public office at some point. I don't know how menial or large that would have been or how far that would have carried me. But that's where my heart was coming in. And that's probably one of the most dramatic changes that I've seen in myself over the 4 years is now I'm doing something completely different that I would have never thought of. I never even wanted to be a chaplain. I wanted to be in military intelligence, which a political science degree would be perfectly geared towards, because intelligence officers need to be very familiar with the politics of different nations or groups or anything like that. So it's just kind of interesting to see, well, okay, now I'm a senior and everything that I wanted to do is not so anymore. But I guess my interest in political science just, I don't want to say got drowned out, but it did get overwhelmed by this calling I feel to go into ministry and minister to America's soldiers.
So looking back, are there any regrets about the journey you've taken here?
Yes. Yeah, there are. I think that a popular answer will be say, no, there's no regrets. I don't really know if that's a very realistic thing to ever say. Of course, everything that I've been through makes me who I am today, and I think that anybody could agree that that's the same for them. But there are certainly things that I would have done over. I mean, I don't want to say that political science major, well, that's just a regret. It's been an honor to go through it, and I've met a lot of wonderful professors, and I've made a lot of awesome friends. But I would, if I could do it again, hone in on more of the ministry component, because that's where I see myself going now. And, you know, they say that hindsight is 20/20. I guess if I could also do it again, I think I would be a little bit more self-confident. As I look back over four years, there's been a lot of times where I've second-guessed myself and I wasn't so sure of myself in the healthy way that the Lord calls us to be. There's certainly a way to become proud and arrogant. I'm not talking about that. But I'm just talking about having a healthy awareness of self and capability, and just the fact that the Lord is with us. And that kind of breeds more of a persona that, you know, can actually minister unto others without me even having to say anything about Jesus or the Lord. And I just wish I could have been more of a positive influence at certain times in my college career. So I guess those would be two regrets if I had to think of it right now.
So with you wanting to go into the ministry, specifically in the Army, have there been opportunities for you to take biblical studies classes, even though it's not your major, as that kind of evolved in terms of what you wanted to do? Are you so far along in the poli-sci plan that you kind of have to finish it out at this point, or have there been opportunities for you to take courses in that area that you want to go into now?
Yeah, so when I really began to get interested in biblical studies and ministry, I was way too far into the political science track to turn the car around. So we're going to finish it. By next semester, I'll be all done with it. But to your other point about different classes, I'm in family and adolescent counseling right now, Foundation of Youth Ministry. There's a leadership course with Reverend Bob Whittet next semester that's going to be offered. I'm going to take that. And I've also done one with Dr. An about global missions, which was awesome. So I've been able to use the remaining elective space that I have to fill with these more, I'll say, contemporary to my interest kind of courses. So that's been nice because, you know, at this point, I've already pretty much filled poli-sci, and now with all of the remaining space left in the race to 120, you can kind of, you know, be strategic about putting in there what you will. I've tried to play that the right way. So,
looking back, what advice would you give to think of yourself as a freshman setting foot on campus for the first time? What would you say to that Shane Seekamp, knowing what you know now?
I'm going to take it in a spiritual direction. I think that the freshman Shane Seekamp was a very stubborn guy, that I feel like if I could do it again, I would be way more receptive to just walking in the Lord, in the sense that I have a peace that I don't exactly know where this train is going, but I'm not going to try to control and manipulate and pull the levers by myself. And I think that would have made a huge difference in my life, because I'm someone that's prone to anxiety and overthinking, and it would have made a difference in other people's lives, because how I present myself, or how anybody presents themselves, especially in secular settings, as I've had a chance to do hundreds of times now, because with all the training events, all of the labs, if I could have presented a more stable face and not have been so attuned to my own control, then I think I could have maybe even been a better even evangelist. And I think that's what I would say, is just kind of have way more of a receptive and open heart to the Lord and what he's doing, because I think that's what gives me the true peace. I think freshmen are really, just in general, like, they can get too stressed out about, I don't know what's next, I'm an undecided major. That's okay. I would just tell anybody like that, if you're putting your faith in Jesus, he will get you there. And in my own experience, it is so much better not knowing and then seeing the Lord pull off these small miracles that it's only him, that validates that he's walking with you. That's so much better anyway than, trying to be like me and tell everybody I know exactly what I want, and I don't know the first thing about what I want. It's that immaturity.
Yeah, so on that note, if you had any general advice for freshmen looking at the ROTC program, who maybe see the military as a path that they want to go down in their career, what would you say to them, and what kind of advice would you give there?
I think I'd say be careful. Because
probably not bad advice for
not bad
somebody
advice.
who wants to go into the military.
Not bad advice. Be careful, because I totally believe that, and I'll just say I'll be 22 next week, and this program is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. And I think the most perfect way to describe it is the Army, and this is important for college students to hear. The ROTC program is the most fulfilling, rewarding program that I've ever done, in the sense that it has really, really put me through the ringer, and it has sucked out a lot of abilities I didn't know that I had. It's really sucked out a lot of the flaws in my leadership, and any kind of problem with having confidence, etc. I mean, the Army will pull that stuff out and then really kind of push you on towards success. ROTC is all about failing. If I could just say that, is that the ROTC will train you how to fail successfully, and that means how to fail and then come back and keep on marching forward. But it's been the most rewarding thing, and it's also been the most bang your head against the wall thing ever. It's bureaucratic. It can be very frustrating to push paper through. It can be very frustrating with the clash of personalities, because it's full of different people, different religions, different backgrounds, different everything. And I've loved that, but I think that if you're not going into it with the right motive, or if you're not finding that you want to particularly serve in that way, I would just pray about it and try it out. I think a lot of people think that, well, okay, I'm going to go into ROTC and then I automatically need to go into the military after college. That's not true. You have a commitment starting junior year. You can test drive ROTC for the first 2 years with no commitment. Another probably big misconception is, well, I'm going to go into ROTC and then I'm going to get deployed to Afghanistan in the middle of junior year if we start fighting. No, ROTC are undeployable. Another misconception probably is, well, okay, I'm going to go into the Army and then I'm going to be on the front line fighting our nation's wars. That's not true either. The infantry will, but there are so many different branches of the Army: Signal Corps, Intelligence, Chaplain, Medic. I can go on and on. And there are so many different support roles finance, aviator. There are so many. So if you feel like the Lord is calling you into it, there is a place for your skill set. And I think that the military needs a lot more Christians, because there's a lot of broken people that are trying to be a part of something bigger than themselves, because the Army is, but it doesn't bring them the fulfillment that comes with being a part of Jesus's army and having that mission. That one supersedes every other one. And when you kind of realize that, it almost gives you a healthy perspective. And like I was saying before, it allows you to really just begin to relax and just kind of say, okay, I'm not in control, but whatever happens with this, maybe ROTC in particular, I trust that it will be used for my benefit and the benefit of others.
Were there ever any times, freshman, sophomore year, when you still had the opt-out option that you wanted to quit?
So I was actually really fortunate. I never wanted to be in the military whatsoever. I hated it. My brother was supposed to go into the military, and it's actually ironic now he is. So I guess it all worked out good, but I was never supposed to. And during my senior year of high school, I was looking around for scholarships to pay for this Gordon education, which is a little bit on the expensive side. And I got a scholarship, or I failed to get a scholarship, from the Veterans of Foreign Wars. And it was an essay contest where you had to talk about democracy or something along those lines. And I had submitted an essay and I recorded a speech, and I didn't make it through. And the Veterans of Foreign Wars in my town, Simsbury, Connecticut, said, well, just come anyway. We're going to give you a check for $50. Kind of wish you the best as you go on to this next stage of your life. Great. I put on a suit. They did a beautiful ceremony. And then after that, you go back and you start talking with the veterans and, thank you for this money. And no matter how small it was, I was grateful. And they began to talk about ROTC. This was March of my senior year of high school. And I really began to notice that I was already interested in politics, especially as it pertained to defense kind of things. And I started to think, well, this could actually be something that would be worth doing. So that summer, I was totally on board. I did all my paperwork, and I hit the ground running freshman year. And I proved to the cadre, which are the uniformed military that run it, that I really wanted to be there. I mean, I was doing good physically. I was contributing in every way, emotionally, physically, mentally. And by April of my freshman year, I found out that the Army wanted to give me a 4-year scholarship. And if you're going to take that money, you sign on the dotted line. In my case, it was 8 years. So since April of 2018, I've been committed now for an 8-year service obligation. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't probably bow out easily. Maybe I could. I would never even think about it because I love it so much. But there are people that come in and they realize that it's not for them. We actually had one guy just drop off in the past couple months. And he was with me coming right in. He had done it for more than 3 years. He went to air assault school, a Ranger Challenge cadet, probably one of the most outstanding cadets I've seen. And I got the word the other day that he had decided to drop because he decided that he was a conscientious objector, which is someone that does not believe in participating in armed conflict. So I guess it could happen. It does. I've seen. If you look at the dropout roster, it's incredible. Name after name after name. Some of them are because of a medical discharge, and I had a problem with my eyes. Well, I'd love to keep serving, but the military won't let me. That's kind of different than I just don't think it's for me. It's never happened to me, but it does happen, and I think I'm just grateful that they tried it, and I thank them for their service, and I would hope that their nation does too, because you do serve in ROTC. And yeah, that's probably what I would say about that.
That's wonderful. So how many Gordon students are involved with the program that you're doing besides yourself?
3, including me is 4.
Right, and JVB is one of them.
Yes, he's he's a stellar cadet. I'm so proud of him. He actually just took a contract just recently, which is a sign that he is making his way through just fine. He is better at PT than I am, and I'm like 2 years ahead of him. I
expect he's probably a little bit faster. Right?
He is. Yeah, he is. He's faster than probably about 75% of the cadets.
I'm on the team too, and he's faster than me. So.
Yeah, he is very, very fast. And he's just very motivated. And I mean, I think of him, and he's also very. He kind of is like these other cadets that start off really early in their college career, and they're just in it. And it's cadets like that I think that are making a big impact on cadre. I mean, he's a squad leader as a sophomore. Squad leaders are usually for juniors. So that just speaks to what kind of cadet he is. I love serving with him. He's a stellar cadet. So.
And have you been able to? I don't know where your experience level is compared to the rest of them, but do you see yourself as kind of having this responsibility to mentor them as somebody who's been through it now for a few years as a senior?
Yeah, I think that all of our cadets that have made it here, the program expects that they will mentor the people coming through. Just the other night we were talking about, how do we balance ROTC with school? How do we balance our personal lives? I mean, this is a huge problem even when we get across the finish line here in the real Army. And there's no surprise that we have a problem with divorce in the military. Well, it's because there can be a problem with balance, and balance here, balance with these relationships, balance with this work. So all of our cadets are vested in ensuring that we teach the younger cadets, okay, well, make sure that you're resting. Make sure that you're setting aside time for yourself to, be socially healthy and things like that. But if a cadet has a problem, they're pretty good about coming forward and saying, hey, I need help. And in the case of, JVB, he's pretty independent. I think he knows the ropes of this probably better than some underclassmen do. So I don't have to worry about him.
All right, so shifting gears a little bit here. I know you told me before we started recording that you've got to be careful in your position. Certainly not going to ask like who you're voting for or anything like that. But as somebody who's studied a lot of political science, I know we talked about this a little bit on our show last time as well. We are, I think, was it 27 days from the election now?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Which is...
next month.
Yeah, kind of crazy to think about.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, today's Wednesday, so 4 weeks minus a day because it's Tuesday. Yeah, so 27 days. Are you as tired and burnt out and ready for it to be over as I am?
Just as much as you are. As much as you are. It's really been... Oh, man. It's just been a long campaign season. And it's been a long campaign season since about 2015. So I think that a lot of the American people are tired, understandably so, and looking for leadership. And, and what we see are, different people value different things in a leader. And I think that one of the problems is we've become so polarized, as you'd probably agree, and there's been so much division that it can actually get in the way of making judgments about what good leadership looks like on both sides.
Absolutely.
And I think that, one of the ways that we could remedy this moving forward is taking a step back and asking ourselves, what at the heart of it, what are our values? What is our standard? What is the line of which that you will not cross? And if we can have those discussions as a people, as a country, and talk about what leadership is and what it isn't, then I think we can kind of eradicate a lot of this disillusionment and confusion about not only, this election. We had this the last election, and if we don't get this right, we'll have it in the next one. When we have a whole different slate of candidates that will not be running it anymore because they're too old or they've already held the office, so they've checked the constitutional requirement. So I would just try to shift it back to the basics. And I think that would be a good remedy because as you are, so am I very tired with it.
Yeah, I guess I keep telling people I'm not even so much worried about November 3rd. I'm worried about November 4th. And going on. But the one silver lining is all the political commercials, all the Facebook ads, all the social media platforms asking me if I'm registered to vote, giving me like all that's going to go away, and that is something that I'm very much looking forward to.
Same here, 100%.
And I can't tell you how many times I've just opened up Facebook or Instagram and started screaming at them because like I am registered to vote.
Yes.
Like I don't need you constantly reminding me.
Be reminded,
I'm
bombarded.
Going to take care of my civic duty. And,
I saw you doing that today.
Yeah. I just
very encouraging.
Yeah. Well, man, I think the mail-in ballot issue is very complicated. Because I see both sides of, like, I guess what the popular Republican view is and what the popular Democrat view is. And, I get it. We are in a pandemic, and there may be some people who are not comfortable going to the polls who have legitimate health risks. You want to make it easier for them to vote by mail, then I am all for that. I'm all for giving people a voice. I think it's one of the most beautiful things about our country. And I want to make sure people have that.
Absolutely.
At the same time, and I can tell you firsthand, working in a college mailroom, working in mail services, the U.S. Postal Service is not exactly in the healthiest shape at the moment.
Right.
And so I think people do have some valid concerns about, if you have, I guess, there's 300 million people in the country, and not all of them are going to be voting, obviously. But, you are talking about over 100 million voters, and depending on what percentage of them vote by mail, you're talking, I would think, at least, a couple tens of millions of ballots going through the mail in just a couple of weeks' time.
It's crazy.
Can the post office handle that? And, I'm just thinking about what's happened to me here. I thought that I requested, because I was going to vote absentee anyway, because I'm at college right now in a different state than where my vote goes back to. And I thought I requested a ballot to come back here to my college address. Well, my parents let me know last week that not only did I get an application to vote by mail at my legal home permanent, I got a ballot already mailed to my legal home permanent. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if I assume if they mail my ballot already, then hopefully I don't get one up here. Because I was just, like you said, filling it out today. But it's going to be interesting, man.
It will.
I really don't know how it's going to turn out. And I don't know. It seems kind of silly to me, looking at Trump's Twitter feed, and I feel like his concerns about mail-in ballots are maybe warranted, but then he goes on and says absentee balloting is perfectly okay. And how do you send absentee ballots back, right? You send them back through the mail. So, you're concerned about the post office interfering, and is my ballot going to get there? Is my ballot going to be counted? It's a very big issue, and I don't think that the popular view is like, mail-in ballots are going to screw up everything, and if the Republicans lose, then that's what we have to blame. Or also, it's totally fine, you don't have any concerns, the fraud rate is 0.0006% or whatever the number that's been going around is. I don't know if it's entirely black or white like that.
Yeah, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if you find out that the winner of the election is determined on November 10th.
Or later.
Yeah. Because
wouldn't be the first time.
It wouldn't
be the first time in our lifetimes.
No, and
right?
and it could even take more than even 2 weeks, just for the reason that you said, because all of these ballots will be just getting shoved right through the mail system, and right. I share a similar concern. Can the Postal Service keep up?
Yeah. Well, and then if you have a repeat of 2000, a state like Florida's as close as that was again.
And then put Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And
there's so much going on.
There is so much.
There's so much at stake.
Right.
I guess the argument always comes, it's like, this is the most important election of our lifetime. And it's
right.
Like, don't you say that every year? But I mean, when you think about it, there's a lot going on in our country right now. There's a lot at stake on the ballot. And it's not just the presidency.
People Senate,
have to
House, yep.
Look at the Senate, the House, majority and minority, being close there. Democrats want to take back the Senate. That's at stake. And then you have your local
cities, all that stuff too.
Yeah, I think it's very important that everybody go research all the candidates in all the races on all your ballots. And I think a lot of times liberals maybe just blindly select every person with a D next to their name. Conservatives, everybody with an R next to their name, and I'm not a big fan of that. I think
it doesn't take a lot of it's an easy way out.
Yeah, sure, but if you really want to be informed, you really want to get to know the people that are going to be making decisions, and I think it's in a lot of ways even more important on a local level in terms of how it affects your life.
Sure, especially now with this virus and
right.
We've had a lot of issues with race and, confronting racism. And, I mean, at the heart of it, it all comes back to the town or the city. And to your point, those local races are really going to matter now because, you walk out of Gordon and you go into one town in Massachusetts and they have one policy on COVID. The next one has a different one. The public schools are open here. They're not there. They're on a staggered schedule here. They're virtual there. I mean, so leadership at all these different levels is going to matter. And I think that local elections might be even more important now than they've been maybe even before in some ways.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I guess, I brought up 2000 a little bit when Florida was so close, but I don't know. Do you think we could be talking about this in December?
Oh, I hope not. It wouldn't be good for the country. It wouldn't be good for the country.
I'm just, we're talking about the ballots. I'm concerned about delays. I'm concerned about, things being, I mean, you saw what the polls were saying in 2016. And, if I had to guess, I do think Trump is in trouble with how the last 6 months have gone. But,
it'll be Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. They'll probably make the final determination.
Right.
And even Texas. I mean, they're talking about Texas being purple. We haven't seen that for years.
We did see it with, I thought very early on that Beto
that was a close
don't
race.
Sleep on Beto for the presidency even.
Yeah.
Because, and I think he was, when I mean, there were only 4 candidates in the race at the time, but he was getting 12, 15% in some of the polls. And the reason I thought that is because they talked a little bit about the Abbott-O'Rourke voter. A lot of people in the Texas 18 election, they liked Greg Abbott as the governor, but they didn't so much like Ted Cruz as the senator. And so I think a lot of the more maybe moderate Democrats or younger Democrats came out. And I'm going to have to go back when I'm editing the video, see if I can find the screenshot, because I was watching NBC's coverage, and there was one point where I think the difference, like they were live tracking the votes as they were counted, and unbelievably close. And of course, Cruz pulled ahead at the end. But I thought if Beto runs and he theoretically gets the nomination, is he a Democrat that could take Texas? And if a Democrat takes Texas, it's basically over. Like Trump could have won all those states, and
he loses
Michigan
those electoral votes, right?
The ones that he shocked the world by winning.
Right.
If he doesn't win Texas, he's at 268.
He's at 268.
He's too short. That's all. That's all it would take.
That's all it would take. Yeah. So I think that's. I don't know if we'll see Texas move blue in this election, but it certainly would be interesting to see if Texas goes down a different road within the next 10 years, and maybe what kind of effect will different population dynamics within our country or anything like that, how that might affect that state particularly.
Yeah. Well, and you got to factor in the census as well.
The census, sure.
That's going to redraw and redefine how many electoral votes are dedicated to each state. Again, I want to be careful. I don't know how much you can give away, but I am a supporter of the Electoral College. I don't know how you.
As am I.
You are as well.
I am as well. Yeah.
I think, I'm sympathetic. If my candidate had won the popular vote and lost the Electoral College, I would have been kind of upset. But looking at it from a neutral point of view, I think there's something to be said for electing the President of the United States versus electing the President of the 10 most populous cities in America.
Yes.
And you can look at a map of California, and everybody talks about Clinton won the popular vote by 3 million. Well, she won the popular vote in California by 4 million.
There you go.
So if you take California away and the 49 other states, Trump gets the popular vote there too.
Right.
Yep. So I think it is important for the states to have a say in somebody who has governing power of the entire nation. Now we can talk about, and the census will obviously play a role in this too. Like, should some states have more electoral votes? Should some states have fewer votes? How should the map be drawn? But I think as a system, we should be careful what we wish for if we're talking about abolishing it entirely.
Oh, of course. Because like you said, it's not the president of the United East and West Coasts. It's the president of the United States. The Electoral College, I think, is so important because it brings in that whole united pool. And it makes sure that, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, states like that aren't getting just blown over by the same thing that you mentioned with California and the, skyrocketing of voting just because it's more populous. And then you have people on that coast with different values trumping other people, and it's just by a sheer, means of numbers. And I don't think that that's probably the best way to move on. So,
do you think there's any chance, with what the polls look like now, and what's happened with COVID and with race, and what do you think Trump's chances are next month?
That's a hard one. I've heard compelling views from both sides that say he won't do it and that say he will. I think that it will really come down to how, like I said, states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida, I think that they'll really decide. Now the polls have Trump up significantly in swing states and national, the national polls. They also had Clinton up. So I don't know how much I put stock in these polls. And then, people will say, well, we've adjusted them after 2016 to take into consideration things that we weren't taking into consideration before. That's fine. I think that the greatest poll will be on November 3rd. And we'll just have to see. That's the only
poll that matters.
That's the only poll that matters. And going back to what we were saying, it actually might take us a lot longer to find out what those polls actually say.
I think the only guarantee that I am willing to lock it in, there will not be a concession speech the night of November 3rd into the morning of November 4th.
No, there will not be.
Cannot picture either Trump or Biden doing that.
We hope for a peaceful transition of power. If there is one, there may not be. And I think that regardless of what happens, just as a future Army officer and just as a citizen, I respect the President of the United States. I respect his office. I respect Trump, and I respect Joe Biden. And at the end of the day, I think that we all have different ideas about who can lead the country better, and who can move us here or there, or things like that. But I think that as Americans, we do owe a basic and fundamental respect, not only to the office, but I would even say the president himself, because if we can agree on that, then I think we could kind of get some of this more shady stuff off the table, where it's just unnecessarily divisive, and polarizing, where we're just going to insult people. That doesn't get anything done. I truly believe in just having a fundamental respect, and then maintaining that respect even when it can be appealing to not do that in more personal conversation, or when you're with your buddies. That stuff matters, and words matter. So I guess that'd just be my view on that.
So correct me if I'm wrong, I think I remember seeing on your social media after George Floyd was killed, you spoke up, and said, of course, Black Lives Matter. Those are three words that I think tragically have turned into a political cry, rather than a cry for justice and simply what those words mean. The NBA puts Black Lives Matter on their court, and everybody immediately thinks, the NBA is getting political. And I don't disagree that the NBA isn't somewhat political on certain issues, but my question to counter that would be, why do you think politics when you see those words? Why don't you think humanity, exactly, when you think those words? So I wanted to get your thoughts, and we can have this conversation as Christians. What's the best way to approach the issue of race in our country right now, with everything so broken and divided as it is?
One of the things that has helped me a lot, I am a white male, but I have friends that are not white men, or whatever. I guess gender doesn't really matter here. But I think that one way to really step into this and kind of educate yourself is to kind of be with people that are not from your background. So by being with people that are, Hispanic or black, or be it whatever it may be, that kind of allows you to enter into someone else's life and hear their struggles. And it's more personal than statistics from CNN or the Pew Research Center that tell me about racism. Hearing about someone's life as, for instance, a black American can change your perspective way more than numbers on a page do any day.
And you try to put yourself in their shoes.
Of course. And I think as Christians, that's what we should be doing, is trying to make those bridges and go into maybe communities that we're not all too familiar with, and hear things that sometimes we might not want to hear, that actually might go against the political script of the party that we sign off on. But at the end of the day, as Christians, we know that Jesus is Lord. The party that we're affiliated with is not. And we follow Jesus' script, not our party's. So, and I think both parties have made an error when it comes to race. But I think that we must agree that there is a problem when it comes to injustices that are experienced by black people in our country, and that's heartbreaking. It's 2020, and I think that a lot of the things that even happened 60, 70, 80 years ago reverberate and have consequences today. And I think that there is no doubt that there are certain privileges that I had in more affluent towns, or the opportunities that I had in school, as a result, that I didn't have to struggle in some ways that I know that my black brothers and sisters may have struggled. And I think that we just need to recognize that there is a difference, and the Lord calls us into that, and to perpetuate and advocate for justice. And I think the how is now what's causing a lot of division. Well, how do we do that? Are we going to protest now? Are we going to,
and if we protest,
what does it look like?
Yeah.
So these are now the questions that I also think have biblical ramifications as well. I think that one source to look at particularly is Martin Luther King.
Right.
What an incredible role model, that knew just how grievous America's sin was against the black community.
Yeah.
And yet he still was such a role model and leader. I mean, all the violence perpetuated against him, and he was such an advocate of not being violent.
Yeah.
So inspiring.
So MLK III is actually pretty active on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And I would definitely recommend anybody listening, if you want more of MLK Jr.'s legacy, and his perspective and what his son thinks of what's going on right now. I've really enjoyed,
Sure.
and feel like I've had my eyes opened by a lot of what he has to say. And I remember right before Trump was inaugurated, that he was one of the people that met with him, then President-elect Trump, to talk about these issues.
Sure.
And, I think I love what you said about political parties. And like this isn't an issue that one or neither, but both of them have work to do here. And
100%.
There was a really good tweet from Sean King, who's one of the BLM
Sure.
leaders, and I certainly do not agree with Sean King on everything, and I'm sure our politics differ in many ways, but I think this particular tweet of his was very good, and he said, everybody's talking about vote. Get out there and vote, make your voice heard, and hashtag vote is trending and everything, and that's all great. But and I'm paraphrasing here, obviously it's not verbatim, but he said we need to be careful because Democrats from top to bottom pretty much run the major cities in America, in this country, where these things are happening.
Yeah.
We voted for them. So how do you reconcile what's happening right now in these cities?
Sure, yeah.
When you take a look at the leadership and the solid leadership in a lot of cases in the last few decades, I don't want to put blame on one person or one party, but if there's a common trend,
It speaks to something.
Yeah, and it goes back to you can't just the vote blue no matter who, or I don't know if there's a vote red equivalent, but I don't know how I feel about that. I think.
No, I think it's a damaging thing. Yeah.
You need to do your research, and you need to make your voice heard. You need to go vote, and you need to know who and what is at stake and who and what is on the ballot.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
So I guess we're getting close to an hour on time here. Maybe we'll wrap it up with this. But, like I said, going off the idea of, looking at everybody on the ballot, what's your take on third-party candidates, particularly in an election where I've been hearing from my liberal friends that
a
vote for
Biden is a vote for Trump, a vote for Trump is a vote for Biden.
Yeah. Well, vote for...
a vote for that third... Yeah.
Vote for third party. Exactly.
Yes.
You had it...
just didn't convey
you had the right
it,
idea. But yeah, I tell people, I think for me personally, I like libertarianism. It's appealing to me because I see economic freedoms of the right and social freedoms of the left. And I don't think I agree with the platform of the party on everything, but I feel like I personally have enough problems with both Biden and Trump, both the Democrats and the Republicans, that I am a registered independent, and there are more than 2 names on that ballot. I want to look at every name on that ballot. But then, like you said, I have liberal friends telling me I'm wasting my vote. I'm casting a vote for Trump, and I don't even know it. And then my conservative friends turn around and say you're voting for Biden. So, how would you counter that?
I think the reality of the situation is that there are third-party candidates on the ballot that we 100% guarantee will not win. So there's that. But then there's also the line of argument that says, well, I want to vote for something and not against it. And I think that when there is a dilemma on both sides, then I personally don't see anything wrong. And I think for some people it would make sense if their conscience is leading them to go that third way. And at the end of the day, if that is what you feel will be the best thing for you because of any kind of problem that you have with either side, be that moral, ethical, etc., then I'd probably say that that's the best way to go. And the Lord sees our heart in that, and I have peace that regardless of what happens, it will work out, and He is in control. I can't say that we'll vote for the third party and they will toe the line. I know you could rest assured they might toe I can't say that, and you know that too.
Right.
But I think that there is something to be said for I'm a voter and I want to vote for ideas and principles and ideas and policies, and I think that that's more compelling and interesting to voters than I gotta do something to cross out so-and-so.
Yeah. Well, I love when people tell me you're throwing your vote away, because I think you want to talk about throwing your vote away. You vote for a cause that you're not fully behind,
sure,
that you can't fully find yourself to support. And I'm not saying you can search for a candidate that you agree with 100% of the issues on. You're never going to find it.
Right.
But enough to the point where you feel comfortable about your vote. If you vote for somebody where you can't say that, that to me is throwing your vote away in many respects. And again, in some states, the case being the situation we have right now is Joe Biden is the Democrat presidential nominee. His home state is Delaware, and Delaware is already an overwhelmingly blue state. So if Joe Biden can't win Delaware, what are we doing here? So right. I think, there's something to be said. And I think Gary Johnson 4 years ago, I think he did a lot of campaigning in California for that reason. Because, if you were, obviously Trump was not the most popular
especially there
candidate. Yeah, especially there. So if you're a disgruntled Republican over there, Clinton's going to win by 4 million votes anyway. What do you have to lose?
What do you have to lose?
And
exactly.
For the third parties, there's the issue of you get 5% of a national election by the popular vote. There's ballot access qualifiers. There's equal federal funding. There are milestones to be hit. If you want to, if you're tired of the two-party system, if you're tired of big government and same old career politicians constantly screwing you over, you want to see a change. If you're in a position like that, what do you have to lose?
Absolutely.
I definitely don't think you're throwing your vote away by doing that. The main issue for me is the 15% threshold for the debates. We've got a debate coming up tonight, very soon. Obviously, it'll be over by the time this is posted, but I think 15% is way too high. I don't know about you.
It certainly doesn't help third-party candidates get into the debate. 15% is a huge threshold. So if I'm a third party, I'm going to really have to pull a line to make it onto the national debate stage.
Yeah, I think you almost would have to be. It would have to be like Trump deciding I'm not going to run as a Republican. I'm going to because he has the following, he had the notoriety, he had the momentum. I think. I don't know if he had run as an independent or run reform like he did in 2000 or something like that, if he could have even gotten there.
Yeah.
But again, going back to 16, Gary Johnson's argument was Ross Perot in 92 was polling basically where I am now. And both Bush and Clinton thought it would be beneficial to them individually if they got the chance to debate him alongside their opponent. So they both wanted him in the debates, and he ended up being there. And then what happens on election day? He gets 19% of the vote, roughly 1 in 5.
And he hurt George Bush. I think I remember hearing that he actually hurt George Bush because I think that they were more aligned than Clinton was with him.
And that's the Ralph Nader argument in Florida in 2000.
There we go. Yeah.
And again, I don't know how much I buy into the spoiler argument universally, but when Gore loses it by less than 600 votes and Ralph Nader gets whatever it was 97,000 in Florida, is the Green Party? Is that more of a conservative cause or a liberal cause, and who are you taking votes from? And I think they did exit polls, and they found that he actually did maybe take some votes from Bush, but definitely took some votes from Gore. Maybe the majority of his voters just wouldn't have voted at all, or would have voted for another independent. But yeah, I think going back to your point, the major parties saw that, and they said, "We can't let this happen again."
Right.
So there's your 15% threshold for the Commission on Presidential Debates.
There we go.
Until that I think gets lifted or at least lowered. Maybe if you're on the ballot in all 50 states, because you can't. Think back to I think Colorado was the state that had I think 22 candidates on. The ballot. I think Colorado's the easiest ballot to get on.
Yes.
But you have to draw the line somewhere.
You do.
Obviously. So if I were in charge, I would say, okay, if you're on the ballot, not even just write-in access, on the ballot in enough states to obtain 270 electoral votes and thus theoretically win the election without being a spoiler and having nobody reach 270 and then it goes to the House, maybe that should be the cutoff. Because I think the Libertarians and the Greens are both big enough causes, big enough parties.
And growing, probably.
Yeah. Well, and even Johnson, and I think Johnson could have done a lot better. I think when you think about the Aleppo incident and interview and, not naming a foreign leader that he admires and just so many gaffes and, not being so strong on foreign policy. I think Trump versus Clinton, if there were ever an opportunity, to have two very unpopular major candidates.
Bring him in as a, third.
Yeah, but even with all that, he almost got 4.5 million votes. Now, I know that the country has over 300 million people, but 4.5 million people being behind a party and a candidate, that's no small cause.
No, it's not. Not at all.
So I think there definitely is a movement here, and I think a lot of people, I see these polls all the time. Forget who we might vote for. Like 75% of people want third-party candidates in the debates.
Wow, yeah, that's a big number.
Joe Jorgensen's argument has been like, look, if you hear what I have to say and you don't like what I have to say,
don't vote.
Don't vote for me.
Yeah, but give me a shot.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking you to do, is let me speak, and that's the hashtag that's been trending, is let her speak.
Let her speak. Yeah.
It's ironic. The media was so thrilled that a woman was the nominee.
Isn't it though? Yeah.
There's a woman on the ballot in all 50 states. Where's all the coverage?
Where's all the coverage?
I wonder where
it's not there.
Yeah, but it's there's a lot riding on this election. There's a lot to talk about. I'm sure we could continue going, but I certainly want to monitor the debate. I'm hopeful that it more so resembles a debate this time around than what we saw last week.
Yes, sir.
And again, I don't want to get too much into it because I know you've got to be careful with the analysis that you give and everything. But thank you for taking the time to sit down with me this evening, taking the time out of your evening. I think
pleasure.
Just speaking for me personally, I've told people I've tried to avoid politics. I still do to a certain extent, but it's gotten to the point where these issues are very important.
And they're becoming more so.
Right. And I think, we as proud citizens of this country all have a duty, no matter what. I think if there's anything conservatives and liberals can agree on these days, it's going to the polls and making your voice heard and voting. Because if you don't do that, do you still have a right to complain about things that aren't going your way? Because you had an opportunity to make your voice heard, and
you didn't.
You didn't, exactly. So thanks again, because
Absolutely.
I know these are sensitive topics and tough conversations to have. But I
needed
appreciate,
to have, yeah. We need to have them.
We need to have them, and I'm sure you and I probably don't even agree on everything, but it's important for us to talk about them.
100%.
And talk about how they affect us and
grow.
Give each other, grow and give each other maybe a different perspective, and open each other's eyes to perspectives that maybe we wouldn't have considered
sure.
had we not talked about it. And that doesn't just go for you and me; that goes for everybody here.
Sure.
I think that's very important, and I think people need to start getting out and doing that more.
Being intentional, that's what it comes down to.
Right, exactly. All right, man. Well, it is hard to believe, but I don't know if you saw the 360 on Gordon this morning, but it's 73 days finished
goodness.
and 72 days left, so we are officially closer to the end than the beginning.
Oh my goodness.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
I have to take a deep breath.
Yeah. Well, you still got a little bit of time. I'm out of here, and
I could turn this around on you. How do you feel about that?
It's crazy, man. I don't know how it happened, but yeah, now that I think about it, where do those 70-something numbers come from? Because the last exam's December 4th, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's less than 2 months. So it's actually less than...
I do not know where they're pulling 72, 73.
Yeah, maybe that's... I don't know.
Including Saturday? No. It can't include weekends, right?
Yeah, no, it can't. Less than 2 months, it's like roughly 60 days. But
okay, wow.
Maybe it's like a billing period or something.
I bet that's what
it is. I don't know. Yeah.
I bet that's what it is.
Or like meal plans ending.
Meal plan, billing period, one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know when it started either, but yeah, man. Less than 2 months. I guess Thanksgiving, because of what they're doing now. Hoping that we make it that far. I think our COVID numbers have been good.
They've been good.
About as good as we could ask for.
Sure.
But we're very fortunate to be on campus right now.
Very
because I know
fortunate.
a lot of students around the country don't have that option right now. But yeah, it's gone by fast, and I
appreciate every minute of it.
Exactly. I'm certainly going to miss you, and
I'm going to miss you too.
I know we have some time.
We do, and we have our contact information too.
Yes, we will definitely stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your night.
You as well, sir.
Obviously, I mean, I feel silly saying I'll talk to you soon because we're roommates. So I'll see you as soon as we go off the air. We can keep having these conversations, man. But
100%.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Hope all of you listen. Have a good night.